Good morning, America, and welcome to this morning's huddle, brought to you by Going on Offense. My name is Darrell Moon, and I'll be your host today. Thank you for being with us, and we hope you will join the conversation as we discuss with our guest panelists, thriving, not just surviving. We hope you will participate and share your ideas and suggestions with us today. We're holding these huddles every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in an effort to both be supportive to those who are struggling, as well as to brainstorm and work together to share and create strategies to inject hope and optimism where there may be doubt and despair. I do want to remind our listeners that this is not a forum to vent, criticize, or complain. There are four primary purposes of these huddles: to support those struggling, to brainstorm strategies to help, to promote resources, and to engage collaboration. Now to introduce today's guest. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Justin Olsen, CMHC, mental health therapist with Blomquist Health Solutions. Justin works with individuals, couples, and families. He helps people who are experiencing depression, anxiety, trauma, ADHD, and substance abuse. I'm going to invite Justin to take 4 or 5 minutes to introduce himself and to share a comment or two about today's topic. But before I do, I want to invite all of you to participate in today's conversation. If you're willing to share thoughts and ideas, just raise your hand on your control box and anytime during the huddle, and I will turn your microphone on and we can hear you. Justin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me, by the way, Darrell. So I am a mental health therapist, like Darrell said, and I work at Blomquist Health Solutions. And the goal with that is that we help anybody with any type of life challenge. And so really, I can meet with for any type of reason, whether that's stress, anxiety, depression, couples issues, problems at work, anything that you can think of is what I'm talking to people for nowadays. And so it's a really good situation that way. I'm for sure talking to people about, financial issues and budget and things like that. And so, but really anything that somebody believes is a challenge to them, something that's causing them trouble, is what I'm talking to them about. And so sometimes with counseling and counseling agencies, they have to be a diagnosable issue to go to counseling and have insurance pay for that. With Blomquist Health and an EAP, which a lot of you guys are going to have, you can go in for any challenge that you could think of. It doesn't have to be something diagnosable. So that's one of my roles with Blomquist Health, which I really, really enjoy. Another role is I'm a business consultant. So I actually go out and visit with businesses that, HR, departments and everything, and I help those businesses to be successful with their employees. So maybe there's a lot of stress going on at their company, or there's a lot of change or transitions. And I can actually go to those companies and do a presentation or meet with people on site and help out in that way. So I work very closely with HR departments and managers and help them to be really successful, along with doing counseling. So it's kind of counseling on more broader end of it. So that's what I do with Blomquist Health and really enjoy that. Previous to that, I was doing a lot of other different types of counseling. I worked a lot with some trauma counseling and doing some EMDR, and I've done a lot of couples counseling and follow kind of a little bit more of the John Gottman approach and like that a lot. I've worked a lot with disabilities in my career. I used to be a director of helping people with disabilities to get jobs and maintain them. And so I did a lot of that in my past life. And so that's some of the things about me. This topic is a real important one for our day. We see that a lot of people are struggling with stress and anxiety and loneliness with COVID-19 and the things that we have. And so thriving in this situation is something that we would all like to have, rather than just kind of getting through it. And so hopefully the goal of some of the things we talk about today is to help you to to thrive a little bit more than just survive. And surviving's okay, but if we can do a little bit better, and be a little happier, then, that would be fantastic. So that's kind of some of my thoughts about it.
Nice. Why don't we start today's huddle by running a poll or two. The first question that we're going to ask is, do you have a routine that is helping you thrive throughout this this pandemic on a day-to-day basis? So let's launch that and just give you a chance to answer yes or no as to whether or not there is some routine that you're following during this pandemic. Looks like people have stopped submitting answers, so let's close that and share it. So 33% are saying yes, that they're trying to follow some kind of a routine. 67% are saying no. So do you want to talk a little bit about the value of a routine and why that might be important, Justin?
I do. Yeah. I would be happy to. So usually in life, we all have routines. I know I have a routine when, a month or two ago, before all of this became as part of our life as it is now. But I would, wake up and exercise and get ready for work, and I'd listen to my podcast on the way to work or some music, and I would be at work for 9 to 5, and then I'd come home and I'd have a different routine, and that was just normal. A lot of times when we don't have a routine and something big like this takes us out of our routine, which this coronavirus has, it makes it so we don't have a real good structure or a plan of what's going to help us to be successful. We might, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, whether that's working at home and taking care of kids or both. And so we lose some of the things that helped us to be successful in the past. And right now, this is a new normal that we're dealing with. And so having a routine can actually create more time for us to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish, and can help us be creative in different ways, because it's going to give us more time to do those things. It's going to help us to set up some really good habits so that we don't have to use our willpower to try to control some behaviors that we do. We just do it because that's a habit. It's become easy to us. Our brain just takes us there. These routines that I would love for everybody to have and myself to have actually set up a really, really good day. And so I like to talk to my clients about setting up, well, what would a morning look like for you? And the good morning routine is going to be one that's tailored to you, that's going to help you to be successful. And so for me, a good routine would look like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to that podcast that I would listen to. I'm going to do some exercise in the morning, because I know that's really important for my physical and mental health and gets me started out on the right foot. I'm going to do some things that are going to help me to begin a great morning and to help me to be successful. And a routine can help you throughout the day. And when we talk about routines and structure, it doesn't mean that you have to have every second of the day scheduled out. You sometimes, even in your routine, you can say, hey, I want to schedule some time just to be creative, or schedule some time just to go on a walk, or to do something that I enjoy that doesn't have to be scheduled the whole time. But what a schedule does is set you up to be really successful. And these are hugely, hugely important for kids and teenagers and people that aren't going to school right now. And so having a routine of what does that look like for you? And you don't have to create that totally for them. It's really important to spend some time thinking about and talking with them about, well, what would be a good routine for you? What would help you to feel happy and successful and feel like you can get your schoolwork done, but still have some time to play video games or talk with friends on the phone or whatever it is. And so setting up a routine that's kind of tailored to you can be really, really beneficial.
I'm going to invite the attendees to raise their hand and share any thoughts they may have about this idea of building a routine, and maybe what are some things that they've found in creating their routines that they have found helpful, or even the lack thereof, and maybe struggles they've had to build a routine. Anyone willing to jump on the computer? If you're not, and you've got a comment, please use the question section on your control box. And even if you're not willing to share with us through the microphone, share with us maybe something through your questions, and we'll bring it up for everybody. I'll monitor that and see if anybody comes up. While we're waiting to see if anybody has any thoughts about routines, let's launch the next poll. And this question is, how productive are you feeling throughout this pandemic? So share with us, not at all, slightly, same as usual, or even more productive. Let's get the input from the attendees. Okay, it looks like most people have had a chance to share. I'll go ahead and close that and share it. Looks like 75% feel like they're slightly productive, and about 25% feel like it's about the same. So from that, we kind of see that people are feeling a little less productive maybe than usual. Maybe you could share, since we don't have anybody that's raising their hand right now, share just a little bit about the impact that routines can have on productivity. And as you counsel people, does productivity and addressing productivity become a common item of discussion?
Yeah, it does for sure, and it does for parents, for their kids is one that I hear a good amount.
I want my kid to be productive.
Right. Yeah, I want them to stop playing video games and to do some of their homework. It's one I hear a good amount. And so right now, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to be totally productive all of the time. And we're going through something that's really difficult, and we're all kind of in this together. We're all experiencing, coronavirus, and we're experiencing it differently. We have different things going on. But so I don't want you to feel like I have to be productive. I have to have everything planned out every second of the day, and I have to be perfect. Right now, we're looking for good, rather than perfection or the best that we've ever done. Some of that scheduling, some of that planning, what it will do is you will be able to plan the things that are important to you. And those will help you to be productive. And so most likely, I like to get most of those things done earlier than later. The later I wait, the more it's like, I don't really want to do that. I know that's important, but that's not something that I really want to put a lot of effort into, as it goes. And so one reason why I try to exercise earlier in the morning than something else, so that I can get that out of the way and feel the best that I can as the day goes on. And so the production type of thing, the planning, if you can set in some things, well, if I got this accomplished today, and maybe I'm not spending an hour on that I used to, maybe it's a half hour, I would feel pretty good about that. And I'd feel like I'm being successful and making some progress. And so we don't have to be perfect right now, but we want to put some things in our schedule that's going to help us to feel good and feel like we are accomplishing things. We struggle as human beings when we don't feel connected and when we don't feel very productive. And so we want to schedule that into our lives to make that happen.
Nice. Tell us just a little bit about the kinds of issues that you're seeing coming in as you're counseling people. And are they the same as always, or are they unique or different because of the pandemic?
Yeah. Even the word that you said, Darrell, in coming in is different. In the past, when I used to think of that, of coming in or meeting with people, that most of the time, probably 95% of the time, that was face-to-face meetings in my office. that's not happening anymore. So most of our sessions are video sessions. They can see me, I can see them. For some people that can't do that, we're going to have a session over the phone. And so that's kind of changed the way we do things, and feels different for them and for me. For some people, I'm meeting them for the first time over video or over the phone. And so I'm trying to build a relationship with them in that way. And so it's interesting. It's kind of changed that dynamic for me, at least. Problem-wise, or things they're coming in for. So I'm here in Utah. One thing that people were struggling with recently is we had an earthquake, and then we had some aftershocks that were pretty big, and it was more in a city type of area. So a lot of people were affected by that. Along with that, we have this coronavirus going on. So people were already very stressed and struggling in different ways. And then that earthquake happened, and lots of people started to struggle, and we're in kind of crisis mode, not thinking as much about, well, I've been depressed for a couple years and I wanted to talk to someone, or my relationships have been struggling. What their brains kind of went to is crisis mode. I'm in danger. Is the world ending? Type of thing. So for a little bit, we were dealing with that. The earthquakes and the aftershocks are starting to calm down some, and so we're still dealing with the coronavirus. So that is for sure something that we're talking about, is kind of dealing with stress, dealing with this crisis. There's loneliness with people, and we know that connection is a huge thing for people. And people are worried about their parents, or they're pregnant and they're worried about that. They're worried about having the virus and giving it to someone else, and so there's some of that. There's some fear and anxiety that goes with that. There's loneliness and frustration and anger about not being able to do some of the things that they used to do. I know in high school, kids aren't being able to play sports, and they're not graduating the same time, and college students are going through all of that. It's this coronavirus kind of shut down a lot of what was going on, and so people don't have as many things to do. So there is a real sense of loss with that. So we're talking to a lot of people about those things. Also, there's some people that are like, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about the coronavirus. I've thought about that before. That's something I've been prepared for. And I want to really talk about my relationship with my husband and how we're not communicating, and things like that. So we're still getting some of those. So there's a lot of coronavirus and stress and worry, but then there's a little bit of people that's like, I'm not worried about it. Let's deal with these other issues that I've been working on.
Interesting. Share with us, if you will, as a counselor or a therapist, what are some of the principles? I would imagine as you work with people, there are principles that you apply on a regular basis, almost regardless of the issue. There are certain things as a therapist that you try to bring around to the discussion. Share with us maybe some of those and how those are helping people with some of the stress and anxiety associated with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So there's probably 5 things that I start with in counseling with a lot of people, including myself and anyone else. If we're doing these 5 things, most likely we're going to deal with things pretty well. And the first 3 are 3 that a lot of people have heard and we know that we should do, but it's kind of a lifelong thing that we're working on. And so the first 3 are, what are you eating? What type of exercise, or are you exercising, and how are you sleeping? And those 3 are truly important and work together to create, a less stress environment, a way for us to enjoy our lives and to feel the best that we can. And like I said, they intermix with each other. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, it's hard to have the type of energy that you need to, for one, exercise, but to keep up with kids and to work and to do all the things that you need to do. Sleep is hugely important for our memory and working with that and helping us to be successful every day and making our bodies prepared for the next day. One thing that helps us to sleep better is to be able to get some form of exercise every day. And so, we're looking at 30 to 60 minutes of exercise every day would be fantastic for most everybody in the world. And so that's a goal of something that we're all trying to do and can help us to be really happy and successful. What we're putting into our bodies is hugely important. If we're putting in fast food and soda and alcohol and drug and other things like that, your body isn't going to function as well as it could, and you're just not going to be as happy. Your brain isn't going to work as well, and you're just not going to be as successful as you could be. So those three are hugely important for how we're going to feel every day and how we're going to deal with stress. The next two are very important also. And so the next one is, what are you doing that you enjoy? What are you doing that makes you happy? And routines are very important for that because you can create time to do something that you enjoy. Even in this pandemic, we can look for opportunities to do things that make us happy. They might look different. Maybe it's a puzzle where I used to be going to the gym. Maybe I'm exercising in my house and I'm finding ways to make that fun. And so you need to spend some time finding out some things that will make you happy and that can make you feel like, these things are making my life feel better and they're helping me to be more successful in happiness and even productivity. So doing some things that make you happy. The last out of the 5 is, who am I talking to? And am I isolating? Am I communicating with people? This pandemic has kind of changed the way that looks. Maybe that was going to people's houses or being at work or doing all of those things in the past. Now we don't have those options. Most of us are staying at home and doing that and doing a really good job with that. But we still need to connect with other people. And so, especially those people that you trust. And I'm not saying you have to talk to people about negative things all the time. I'd love it to be some things that stress you out. I'd love it to be some things that you really want to talk about, whether that's sports or exercise or what your family's doing. It doesn't matter. It just matters that I feel like I have a good relationship with this person and I can talk to them about some things going on in my life. And so communication is hugely important and not feeling alone in this time or at any time. As human beings, we function so much better when we have good relationships and we communicate and we're a part of each other's lives. So those are a 5 that, to me, I talk about with most clients some way or another. And if people are doing those 5, most likely they're in a pretty good place. It doesn't mean that I won't see them in counseling from time to time, but most likely they can handle the things that they're going through. And maybe a little bit of counseling just puts them over the edge. But every single one of us has stress in our lives. And to some extent, stress can be good, but we have to be able to do things to manage that stress, and these 5 are kind of a beginning point to do that.
Thanks. Very good. I want to invite the attendees that if they have a question for Justin, to simply send that in as a question, and I'll be happy to share that with them. As you and I both know, in order to really help someone, you often have to build a trusting relationship. Rapport is critical in order for people to open up and share with you perhaps what's bothering them and what they're struggling with. What are some ways that you work on building rapport? And now that you've got maybe a limited interaction with people, or it's a little bit different, what are you finding helps to, again, build that rapport to begin that relationship of trust?
Yeah. Rapport is huge and might be the most important part of counseling and probably any relationship. We know that, in relationships, if you have a good rapport, you have a good relationship with someone, you're going to fight less, and those fights, those disagreements are going to go over a lot better because you trust each other. We're trying to build that in counseling. When I went to school, I remember one of my teachers saying 70% of what helps in counseling is that relationship that you build with them. Way before you teach them anything about those 5 things I taught you, way before you teach them anything about cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR, any modality that you're thinking of using, is what type of relationship can you build with them. So hugely, hugely important. With me, I personally think that you build a relationship by being a real person and talking about things that they're interested in, talking about things that they do that they enjoy. And sadly, too often I find that, well, I don't do anything that I enjoy. Well, let's talk about that. But it's communicating with them on a basis and just being interested in their lives. And kind of, to me, it's kind of being down to earth and showing them that you're a real person and you're not this person that's judging them the whole time and trying to fix them. It's kind of engaging in a relationship, especially in the beginning and all throughout, that you can have some kindness and you can have some laughter and joke and be a part of that relationship that's really beneficial for them. And so I try to do that at the beginning of most every session, but for sure at the beginning of when they come in the first time, is I want to, rather than let's find out what your problem is and let's fix that right now, let's build a relationship so that you can begin to trust me, and then it's a lot more likely that you would care about what I have to say. Mm-hmm. Especially with teenagers and kids, before I'm talking about anything therapeutically, I'm talking about, what do you do for fun? What type of video games are you playing? What types of things what kind of goals do you have? What would you like to get from this type of thing? Way before I'm teaching them or saying, hey, we need to try this. They don't care about doing those things until we have a relationship that they begin to trust me. And sometimes, like I said, with teenagers and kids, that takes a little bit more time. Sometimes with adults, they're coming in and they're like, this is your job and your role, and so we don't need as great a relationship. I'm coming in to get some help with these problems. But still, in those cases, I would love to build a relationship with them and help them to be successful with that before we move on to solving issues.
Justin, you brought up cognitive behavioral therapy. Define for us what that means. What does cognitive behavioral therapy, and then maybe did you say EMDR? Share with us what do those principles of therapy mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, those are some big ones and some important one in our lives. And so cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of people know it as CBT. It's probably the most famous therapy for sure that I've ever heard of or that people do. And if you've ever done any type of counseling or seen any shows with counseling, you've probably seen cognitive behavioral therapy. There's lots of different forms of it. A simple way that I like to talk about it with clients is a lot of times situations happen and we don't have a lot of control over those situations. COVID-19 is a situation that has happened that we didn't have control over. And that situation influences what we think. And so then comes our thought from the situation. So we get to choose what our thought is about that situation. A lot of our thoughts kind of happen automatically, and then we get to choose what to do with those thoughts. And so say that the situation's COVID-19 and our thought is, well, I'm worried about my parents and I'm worried about getting it and I'm worried about spreading it. I'm worried about financial things. So those are all thoughts that come from that. And then those thoughts they influence what our emotion is going to be. They kind of dictate what our emotion is going to be. So if those scary things, if we have those scary thoughts, then we're going to feel a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of sadness or frustration. And then what those emotions lead to is our behaviors. So when we have those negative emotions, then it leads to what we're going to do. Well, maybe I'm gonna cry over that, or I'm gonna be sad, or I'm not gonna communicate, or I'm gonna punch the wall, whatever it is. So all of those things can lead to behaviors. With CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, some of the goal is to learn how to change and make that thought a more positive or helpful thought, that we can change some of our behaviors. So in a lot of these cases with cognitive behavioral therapy, I would tell people, okay, well, what is a more positive or more realistic thought that we could have about this same situation? Some people think, well, I have to stay home because of, COVID-19. And you can change that thought as, well, I'm safe at home. And that's a whole different emotion when you think I'm being forced to stay home, or I'm being safe staying home. I'm protecting other people by staying home. So what we're trying to do is to try to change that thought to a more productive or helpful thought, and then that will change our emotions from that. And then those emotions will lead to behaviors. If we're thinking, well, I'm safe and I'm actually helping people by staying home, unless I need to go out for something essential, then what that does is that makes us feel better about what we're doing. And we can actually feel really successful staying home and really productive and happy, rather than this being angry or upset because we have to stay home. And the only thing that we're changing in that whole situation is, what is your thought about the situation? So cognitive behavioral therapy is changing your thoughts, and then we'll change your behaviors in that way. So
that's actually a great entree to another poll we have set up. Let's launch this next poll, which is, how are you dealing with the social distancing that we're doing right now? Let's get a feel from the audience as to how this keeping separate. Am I okay? It feels strange. I miss the past. I'm really struggling with it. Give us an idea as to how being distant from other people is affecting you. We'll see what people have to say.
Yeah.
Right now, everyone that has responded is, I'm okay with it.
Good.
Well, that's good. Our audience is not struggling at all with this social distancing. So I'm going to leave it open for just another couple of seconds. And again, I'll close that. I'll share it briefly because, again, 100% of the audience said, I'm okay with it. So that doesn't seem to be a challenge or a problem, which is good. Maybe we can launch the final one, which is, do you feel you're having a positive impact on others? Let's get a feel for whether this has limited, or if you're feeling like it's actually accelerated your opportunity to help other people. And then maybe we can get into a conversation about how does feeling like you're able to help others impact your emotions. So again, it looks like we have everybody answering the same answer, and that is a little. So I'll go ahead and close that and share it. Everyone answered the same, and now I'll hide it. So let's talk a little bit about the impact that just service and helping other people have on emotions, and this whole concept of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah. So like I talked about, one of the huge things in those 5 was connecting with others and feeling like you have supportive relationships. And so, we're isolating, we're alone, and most of the time. And so, like I said, that is having some effect on some of the people that I talk to for sure. And so what's real important for that is looking for some ways to help other people, looking for some ways to kind of be a light at the end of the tunnel for other people. And there's thousands of different ideas about how people are doing this, whether it's going to the store and texting your parents or other people or older people around that may not be getting out as much, may be more susceptible to getting, really sick from COVID-19, and saying, hey, do you need anything from the store? Is there anything that I can help you with? And so that connecting is hugely important. And, in the past, we were starting to kind of talk negatively about technology and phones and all the social media stuff that people do from time to time. And in this instance, it can be a really positive thing because we can communicate through FaceTime, through Zoom, through things that we were not able to do in the past, that can show us that, we can still help other people out and we can still build, a good relationship. One thing that I would say that's really, really important for us at this time is to look for opportunities to do those random acts of kindness, to do good things for other people. And that has a huge effect on them, but it has a bigger effect even on us, in that we feel good about what we've done, and we feel good about how they responded, and we feel good about helping other people out. And that builds trust in our communities. And so it's a win-win-win for everyone. We're helping someone out. We get those fantastic feelings because of it. And then we're helping the community to build trust in each other that we're going to get through this and we're going to be successful. And so, like I said, I think it's real important for us to spend some time every day looking for opportunities to do something that could be helpful for someone. Maybe that's something for your kids. Maybe that's texting grandparents. Maybe that's writing a letter. Maybe that's spending some time on FaceTime or doing something that maybe we didn't have time to do in the past. Maybe that's helping around the house when we didn't used to do that. Maybe that's helping a neighbor out with something. And so there's tons and tons of different things that we could do, and it just take a couple minutes of looking into those. But those affect us and actually help us to be much happier than what we used to be. And it's just by helping someone else, which doesn't seem like it totally goes together, but is hugely a real important thing. And there's been a lot of, science and data that kind of backs that up. As when we help other people out, we actually get the majority of the benefit from that, along with helping them. And like I said, helping the community to feel better.
We had a therapist on a couple of weeks ago that brought that up. In a study that was done, you mentioned earlier that one of the 5 things that people should do is do things that will make them happy. In the particular study that he referenced, they found that in the United States, people often did things for themselves to try to make themselves happy, where they found and they weren't very successful. That when you attempt to make yourself happy, you're not very successful at becoming happy. Where in other countries, they found that there was a much greater prevalence of, to be happy, I'm going to try to do something to make someone else happy, which did have an actual impact on making people happy. So it supports what you just said.
Yeah.
Maybe we could jump into a couple questions. Some statistics show that many people who have mental health symptoms or struggling with anxiety or depression or challenges don't get the help they need. In fact, some say that on average, people wait 10 years before they get the help they need, and 57% of the people who need help never get the help at all. What are some things you can recommend that would help people to shorten that time and to get over the stigma or shame that are often so prevalent and that people report as the reason they don't reach out and get help? Yeah,
hugely important question for our day, and thankfully I think that is coming down a little bit. I think that probably would even have been worse in the past. And one thing that I do think is helping is people talking about it a little bit. Is I could I could sit here all day and say how important counseling is and how it could help you and everything, and that helps some people. But when they see somebody in their lives that maybe is struggling or has gotten better, and they say, hey, I I went to some counseling and that really helped me. And then so that opens the eyes of that person of how helpful this can be, and so a lot of times, like I said, it's hearing from other people. It's hearing that, for one, we all have things that we struggle with. We all have stress. We all have different things that cause us trouble from time to time. And if we can be a little bit more open about, what's helping us or what has helped us in the past, or what types of things can we do to help each other, can be really beneficial. And I think that's easing some of the stigma. This is everywhere. I remember, last year in the NFL, there was a lineman that for the Eagles that plays, every Sunday, and he has anxiety, and one game he wasn't able to play. And the reaction of other people, other teammates and stuff, and what they did to help him and to be understanding, that opens it up for other NFL players and other people to go in and want to do some counseling. I saw a video about Michelle Obama talking about how her and Barack Obama went and had some couples counseling and how that went for them. And so just people being more open reduces the stigma of what counseling is like. And if I went to counseling, then I must have this serious mental health issue. That's why, like we talked about early on with Blomquist-Hill, where you can come in for any life challenge. You could come in for anything that you would want to come in for, whether that's stress at work or problems with communication or whatever it is. And so a lot of times EAPs that a lot of you could be really beneficial into. I don't have to feel like I have this real significant problem, but I can go in and get some help. There's some people that I could trust that would go okay. Those numbers of waiting 10 years to get help, that's when it turns into more significant issues, because you've been dealing with that for so long. And so the sooner that you can get in and just say, hey, I've been struggling with this, or I've been a little bit more sad than I feel like I should. A lot of times, like I said, it could take 1 or 2 sessions to get feeling a lot better. I see that all of the time. And so that number of 10 years is a scary one. And like I said, we want to do everything we can to reduce the amount of time. And like I said, that's being open, and that's feeling like, we all struggle with things from time to time, and there's people that it's their job to help us out with that. So might as well do it.
Well, and to that point, I saw a statistic a few weeks ago, and this was a recent survey done just last year, that 60% of the workforce, so it was a survey done of employers and workers, 60% said that mental health symptoms were affecting their job in any year. So if you think about it, that's a lot of people. And if people recognize that I'm not alone here, 60% of my coworkers are struggling with some level of life challenge that's affecting my work. Now, I would guess that with this pandemic, that 60% has probably gone up.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone down. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, that we can recognize that people struggle. It's okay to struggle, and it's okay to reach out for help. And it's certainly better to reach out early and actually deal with things before they become more serious and become a more significant mental health condition or need treatment of some kind.
Right.
We're going to wrap things up, Justin, but before we do, and before I kind of share some final thoughts, maybe if you would share a thought or two you'd like to share in conclusion to wrap this up about thriving rather than just surviving.
Yeah. One final thought that I have, and one thing that I've enjoyed and kind of thought about, how can I do this, And I think thinking about how to do this and then doing some of these things will really help us to thrive rather than just survive at this point. And it's kind of, all of us can kind of be a superhero at this time. I don't know if you've seen this meme that I never knew I could be a superhero by just staying home and watching Netflix. And so that's something interesting for us to think about. But beyond that, it's what can I do to make this better for me and for the people around me? And the small things that we do are hugely, hugely important. A lot of your jobs are doing that. To some extent, with doing presentations and coming on here and trying to help people, I try to think about, well, what is it that I would want to hear in this situation? What is it that might help me? And that's where those routines and schedules and reaching out to people, really seems to be beneficial for me and for other people. So to me, I try to spend some time of what can I do today? What can I do this week that's going to affect and impact some other people? Because I know that as I do that, I'm going to be so much happier, and the world's going to be so much of a better place when we're going through something difficult. So take some time to think about that, and how do I impact other people? How can I, be really successful in that? And kind of just notice, what does that do to me? What does that do to my happiness level? How does that affect me when I try to help other people? And so that's kind of what I would think would be a good ending of how can I be a superhero in this difficult situation that's going on.
Nice. Justin, thank you very much. In conclusion, I'd like to announce that we're going to have next Monday, April 27th, a guest panelist, Darren Elkins, who is also a therapist. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's also a director at Blomquist Health Solutions, which is an employee assistance program in Salt Lake City, Utah. Darren received his master's degree from Utah State University. He also holds 2 bachelor's degrees from the University of Utah, one in psychology and the other in family and human development. He served as a board member for the Utah chapter of American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. Immediately following the huddle today, you'll receive an email asking you to give feedback on today's huddle. Please fill that out and give us feedback on how we might be able to make this more effective. Again, if you'd like to be a guest to provide your input as a panelist, or if you know someone that you would like to recommend, we'd love to hear from you. To communicate with us, just simply use the Contact Us form on the website goingonoffense.com. We want to thank today's guest panelist, Justin. Thank you so much for your participation. We also want to thank the organizations that have gotten behind this effort and are supporting it. Please check out the wonderful offers of help on the help page of the website. We also want to let you know that we'll be posting this recording later today. And to wrap up the huddle, I'm going to play a music video called Together We Are One. We'll sign off now and say goodbye and hope you will join us for an upcoming huddle. Again, we hold them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the same time.